What's up, everybody? Today's episode is sponsored by LuLaRoe. LuLaRoe is a clothing company that provides comfortable, fashionable, and unique clothing for everyone. The famous soft, buttery leggings that I'm wearing right now are only the beginning. LuLaRoe also has an amazing lines of women's dresses, skirts, tunics, and t-shirts. Go to facebook.com/groups/LuLaRoe, REBECCA, Clark VIP. Enter too many words to get 20% off on your next order. Let's do the show. What's up, everybody? I am Jamie Bedingfield. This is my podcast, Too Many Words. Thanks for tuning in. Before I get too into it, full disclaimer, today I am actively getting ill as I record this. I started the day feeling okay, and then symptoms just started to creep in. Other people in my house are under the weather, so I've been suspecting that I was going to get this, and here it is. It's coming like a freight train. I hate getting sick. I get grumpy because I am slowed and my brain isn't as sharp. And so, yes, my throat is a little scratchy, and I am probably not going to be talking too much before I get to my conversation, which brings me to the guest of the day. Oli Jacobs is back on the show. You can go back in wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and you can find my other episode with Oli Jacobs. Good stuff in there. Really funny guy. Super interesting things to say, and I love his books and his writing, so definitely look him up. I just finished reading The Children of Little Thwopping, and we talk a bit about it in our chat. Really loved this book. The tone that it's told in it's spot on, and yes, so I will have that for you in a little bit. We are in December. The holiday crazy buzz is in the air, and it's out there on the road. Everybody needs to slow down. I am slowly getting ready for Christmas. I've got a few things, a lot more to get, putting the show on for the kids, as it were. But what's up with you guys? How's it going? How are things? How are projects? How's everything? I feel very breathy while I'm talking because I'm congested, so I apologize. I'm starting to feel self-conscious about like my breathing into the microphone. I try really hard not to do that, but like I said, under the weather here. But other than that, other than feeling physically ill more every second, my mind is in a better place than it was last week. It's not in the kind of place that it could be. It could be in a better place. I feel like I'm headed there. There's a certain acceptance that has come with waiting, and it helps. I'm starting to get ideas. My word count is getting back to a place that feels good, and I got asked to write a short story, magical realism again, by a different publisher this time. I was invited. Not going to give out too many details yet, but I am almost finished with the first draft of that story, and that came to me while I was listening to Pixies, and I've been listening to a lot of Pixies. Great band, really just good stuff. So, and then I have another project budding, and my collaboration projects are starting to get into a groove. I am slowly getting back to it's a different phase. I'm in a completely different spot. I see that. But yes, I'm getting more comfortable here. I'm always, change always gets me, and I never make note of it. Like as something's happening, as I'm in this transition period, or as I'm, switching gears, I don't say, hey, Jamie, keep in mind that you have issues with change, and it makes you anxious and crazy. So yes, I am starting to adjust. I feel it. I do. And that is all I'm going to say on my monologue, my self-talk, my rambling. Today, I'm going to go to my conversation with Oli. I'm going to rest my voice, and I promise to be much more chatty next week. That is if I'm not still sick. Hopefully, it's just a quick thing. But you are in for a treat because I had an awesome time talking to Oli. Really fun. And, actually it's just, you never know what somebody, when I invite somebody on the show, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to get. I have an idea, I have my assumptions. And I'm always surprised and delighted, and it's really a cool thing about doing the show is meeting all these people and, picking all these brilliant minds. But I just love my talks with Oli. Good stuff. And after this song or piece of song, I'll be talking to him. To the show, Oli.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for having me again. Obviously, I made a good impression last time.
Oh, definitely. It was a lot of fun talking to you, and the listeners love you. So you're.
Well, the bribes worked. Basically. It was expensive, but worth it.
Bribes usually are.
I think so. They're the top currency in this day and age.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Yes. It is my birthday. 21 again, obviously.
I keep turning 21 every year too.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think this is my 12th or 13th year of turning 21, and it just keeps getting better and better. It's just when I start finding more and more grey hairs, that's when the reality sets in.
Yeah, reality.
Although, in an OCD kind of way, one thing that I wouldn't say obsessed with, but I found nerdy interesting was because it's my 33rd birthday, and obviously it's the 6th of the 12th, and they're all divisible by 3. For some reason, that really makes me, when you get deep satisfaction off something.
Yes. Interesting.
Yes. It's like I'm 33 on the 6th of the 12th, and each of those numbers is divisible by 3, and it's like, oh, yes. I don't know why this feels so good, but it does. It's like watching an apple or some other fruit get perfectly peeled, or there was this wrestling gif I saw the other day because they had a pay-per-view, the TLC pay-per-view, so tables, ladders, chairs, and there's this perfect gif of this ladder bouncing off the ropes, then bouncing off all of the ropes individually until hitting the floor. And it's just that kind of OCD perfection where you're watching this kind of going, I don't know why I love this, but I do. World in sync and wonderful, and yes, other such nerdy goodness.
Totally. Well, you know what? This morning when I got out of bed, my slippers were perfectly aligned, so all I had to do was just slip my feet right in them.
Yes.
And I am in a good mood today for the first time in weeks. So maybe that has something to do with it, the alignment.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in a good mood for the first time in weeks as well. So yes, maybe it is that kind of mental alignment that's suddenly all depressives around the world are going, you know what, it's all right. Not too bad. I'm going to have an ice cream.
Yeah.
And then they remember they're dairy intolerant, and it just all goes down again.
I had a hazelnut latte this morning, and it was delightful.
See, I couldn't have a hazelnut latte because I'm allergic to nuts. So
that sucks.
Delightful for you if you then went, Ollie, have a hazelnut latte. I went, thank you very much. Sorry, what latte did you say this was? Hazelnut. Oh, dear. I now appear to be dying. No, I actually, for my birthday, I got some delightful Belgian beer, so I've been enjoying that as well. So do excuse me if I don't think I'm tipsy, but I think I'm well on the way. Oh, it's all good. I'm more than tipsy through 50% of my recording for Too Many Words, so it's all good. It's 9:30 in the morning now. We're almost 10. So for me, I'm not there yet. Catch me at 4:00 and I'm on it. It's 6:00 somewhere in the world. It's always 6:00 somewhere. But it's true. Yes. No, like I say, birthday meal tonight. as well. So this end, it is all good.
That's awesome. Well, I really I feel honored to have you on your birthday for a little bit.
Well, when you kind of suggested the date to me, I was like, well, I'll definitely be free that day. So kind of a day to remember as well. But yes, no, it's like I say, it's a pleasure to be back. I hope to once again enthrall your listeners, and if not, kind of add subliminal messaging to them by my books, so that they will find something from this little chat.
Well, speaking of your books, I just finished.
Who mentioned my books?
Yes, see, subliminal.
Yeah,
the Costanza approach. Costanza. I will never stop doing Seinfeld references. I was
going to say, I for a moment I was like, Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The only thing I ever remember about Seinfeld, I mean, I loved it. I really, really, as you have those shows where they're just perfect.
Yes.
And that, like I say, Seinfeld was definitely one of those.
For me as well.
Oh, I need to watch it again, actually. See, it's one of those things, if they ever put it on Netflix, that would be it.
That would be, I would love, I was thinking that when I saw Frasier on there. I was like, I want Seinfeld on here.
Oh, have you folks got Frasier on US Netflix?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm actually quite jealous now. Because that's something else. You'd just be like, let me just watch one episode, and 10 hours later, I'm not going to sing the theme tune to Frasier.
Well, it's like, I never really liked the show when it was first big, and then when we first came to Seattle from New Jersey, and we were living in an extended stay hotel, it was on, and we were just we got all into it.
Isn't in Seattle? Isn't it just on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Well, there's that one channel, I can't think of it, but it is pretty much on a lot.
Is it the Frasier Crane channel by any chance? Its logo is
possible.
Just a disembodied head of Kelsey Grammer.
That sounds terrifying.
With the little motto it has to be in Latin. I don't know what Latin for I'm listening is, but it would be something like that.
I'll have to look that up. I was looking up a bunch of Latin words to get inspiration for writing spells for a character.
Ah, yes.
And I got lost. It was nice.
It is interesting when that happens, actually. I recently, for the book I'm working on at the moment, because it's set in an alternate England, as it were, I'm researching locations and trying to find in their etymology if they had a different name. And then, you just get lost I actually got lost in the rail networks in Buckinghamshire, which was interesting.
Oh, nice. I bet it was.
Also, because I need it in the story, it ends up with the train derailing because it warps into a train line that doesn't exist in our world. So I'm literally Googling disused railway stations and finding this brilliant list of all these places which no longer exist, but once, and
that's awesome.
It's the whole wiki wormhole thing. But
I love. It's really. And I guess I would say I'm surprised because research is not something that I enjoyed at all in school.
God, no, yeah.
But when it comes to writing, the dystopian that I finished a few weeks ago or sent off a few weeks ago, I was doing a lot of research on global warming and different wars throughout history, and it was just you can just get lost in stuff. It's awesome. I really like it.
I think one of my short stories I posted on my website as well, Fort Hamilton, which is hopefully going to be in the next film it cuts. Because I set that during Confederate America. I was like, and I've done this before, you kind of, if you're going to do something like that, you need to basically have the right information. There's only so much you can say, it's fiction, so I'm just going to make it up. So you have to have some kind of basis. So when I was doing this, it wasn't just, where can I set this fictional fort where it's almost desolate? And I think it was the Pacific Southwest. I ended up setting it.
Okay.
But then from that it became weather conditions there, and from that it became what year and what stage the American Civil War was, and then it got into what the popular names of surnames were in that era. Just because you want it to stand up,
uh-huh.
You want it to kind of have some foundation, even though obviously you are going in more fictional directions, you still want there to be some sort of element of fact.
Definitely. Well, and it helps. I mean, I feel like it helps just in the creation process, because then I have all this stuff to pull from as if, I've actually experienced it, and then I can,
Definitely, yeah. It's gone wrong again, hasn't it? I think last time we had the podcast, it devolved into, was it biscuits?
Donutting.
Yeah.
I still believe in that.
Do you know what? I can't remember what the bloody theory was.
It was that it was going to be like a new, like that's what the kids are going to do. They're going to be.
Oh yes,
they're going to be
donuts or something like.
Well,
this is the problem with having a creative mind. You come up with so many ideas. And somebody asked me this recently when I was trying to sell one of my books, and they said, so what's it about?" And I kind of gave them the basics, and they kept asking me questions. I'm standing there going, "I don't know, yeah." And then they're quoting a line at me. Like somebody actually quoted one of my lines at me just in casual conversation. And I'm looking at them kind of going, I should know this reference. Is it The Simpsons? I think it's your book. Is it? I wrote that? Oh, brilliant.
But to go back to our last episode briefly, carrying on with donutting, Fireball whiskey, I put it in eggnog and it's awesome.
By God, I think we were discussing, I think, before, either at the beginning or before we started recording, the culinary experimentation that comes as you get older, especially when it comes to alcohol as well, I found. The whole mantra that anything can be a cocktail, if you believe.
It's true.
Cinnamon, I guess, so it would work quite well in that kind of combination. Again, eggnog is one of these things I can't have, unfortunately, because it is actually egg, isn't it? Hence eggnog. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think it does have egg in it.
You wacky Americans and your concoctions. Well, I'd good old tea. Have tea. Don't even like tea either. I'm a lie.
I like mint tea. I love mint tea. It's good for my nerves.
Mint tea is actually quite nice. I have had mint tea, and every time I say, when you keep saying words, they lose all meaning, or they start to meld into something else. Every time I say mint tea, it's like minty. No, not minty. It's like, shut up. Just please stop.
Well, yeah, I experience that when I'm with my own words, when I'm editing. It's like, I don't know what any of this means anymore.
That is the worst time. That sort of like word garbling. I'm sure there's a word for it, ironically. But yeah, especially when you're editing. I recently edited the 5th Kirk Sandblaster book, available now. And yeah, you're kind of reading through, and you've seen bits where you've repeated certain words, and it turns into like a madness mantra.
It really does.
Constant, and especially when you're reading and rereading sentences to try and, I think, one of the major things, obviously, that I do through my editing, as I'm sure you do as well, is you'll write a paragraph in the first or second draft, and it'll be, at the time you're thinking, this is perfect, this is brilliant, this is linguistic perfection, and then you read it again, and you wonder at what point in the sentence you had a stroke. And it's weird because you can see there is the semblance of a narrative sentence or a narrative series of sentences there, but it's so mangled in words that it's like, have you had a look at Bad Sandwich yet?
Yes, I have been reading it.
God help you. But that is the perfect example of, and that was deliberate as well. It's of creating sentences which.
Because I was going to say, yeah, I mean that flows. I really like it. I mean, it works.
But what I'm saying is, it makes linguistic sense on a functional level, on a technical level, but on an actual, this is how a person would speak, it's completely out the window. Because nobody would speak like that. So yeah, when you're reading back through your work and you're editing, and you kind of you come to a line where at the time it made perfect sense, but now it's just like some sort of sentence from another universe.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I actually, with my last round of edits, there was a bunch of sentences that my editor had, highlighted and saying, like, these are very vague. And it's like, at the time, I thought it was, this, like, literary genius of how I'm describing something or adding.
Oh, you do, yeah.
And then it's like, and you read back and you're just like, what?
That's why I leave such a gap between, obviously, when I first write the story and when I come back to edit it, so that I have that time where effectively my brain resets. As I said earlier about not quite remembering creative stuff that I've done before, I can then read back, and it helps to, I think all writers not should do this, but because I would suspect they do it anyway, because it's the very basis of the foundation, of editing. When you read it back, realise, oh my God, what the hell happened here? How have I written such a brilliant car crash? And then basically recovering the verbal bodies from that wreck.
Yes, I like the imagery there.
That really went on a metaphorical tangent there. That was a metaphor, wasn't it? Not a simile. I always get those two confused.
I do too, but yeah, no, that was a metaphor.
And there's a third one, isn't there? Metaphor, simile, and Bob. Bob. Coming here with descriptive words. But yeah, no, I think when editing, I mean, sometimes you'll get a chapter and there's nothing you want to change.
I love that.
It's such a good feeling, because obviously when I get into writing, and I think I said this on the last time we spoke, it has to be right, it has to be perfect in my head. So I can't just, obviously there are people who say, like, main bit of advice is just write and then you can sort it out later. For me, I can't do that. I will know if I'm writing crap, effectively. So yeah, to come back and to read something and it still flows really nicely and still conveys the point you're trying to make, it's very satisfying.
It really is. Well, and it's a confidence booster too, when you can when you're actually allowed to have that moment where you're like, okay, I'm not half bad at this.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's always justifying to yourself why you're doing it.
Yes.
This moment where it's like, hey, you're not actually as shit as you think you are. Yeah. Excellent. Well, let's go with that then.
Yeah, it is always nice. I mean, my inner critic and inner doubt can be really loud.
I think I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but I find the best writers have the loudest inner critics.
We didn't speak about this last time, but I like that philosophy a lot.
Okay. Well, let's touch on this lovely subject matter, the sheer insanity of being a writer. Well, boys and girls, to be a writer, not just have to be an alcoholic, but absolutely horrendously mentally ill. Then you'll know all the stories. The more stories you know, the worse you are. How many stories do you know, Ollie? About 50 odd. And that's when it gets bad. But yeah, I think, because I mean, full disclosure, I recently went through a very bad patch. And I think I spoke to somebody, and I don't want to blame. I hate blowing my own horn, as it were. But they were saying there is this line, very, very, very thin line between genius and insanity. And
there is,
yeah. So to have this creativity, to have this, I think I've said it so many times that the best writers are schizophrenic. Because you can embody so many different voices and different characters.
Yes, and the worlds that they live in. I mean, it's like, it's very disorienting to do, and it feels that way sometimes. Like when you pick your head up and you're like, what have I done all day besides just make shit up?
Yeah, and in your mind, to actually contain that as well, that's a lot of information to hold together. We write genre fiction, so you do fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I've got like sci-fi comedy, the Kirk Sandblast and stuff.
Yeah.
So these are places with massive worlds, massive lore and massive structure, and there's so many things there that you have to keep in your own head that it does drive you mental.
It does. I know.
Yeah.
It's and then it's like there's that, and then there's all this emotional components involved that it's just like,
oh yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm in a good mood today, and it's the first time in weeks, and I had, ripped through that whole dystopian, and then I'd gone into that, went over to my editor, and then we edited it, and it was just this like intense chunk of months, and then I sent it out to everybody, and then I was in pieces. I was like, first of all, I was zapped from like everything that I just did. And then I was like telling myself that there's no way anything is going to come of it because it's terrible. So
see, that's an interesting philosophy I've recently adopted, and I've found it's actually been a bit helpful. I kind of what was it? It was like I say, I went through a terrible mental state recently. And I've almost adopted this. I wouldn't say it's the healthiest approach. I'm the first to hold my hands up this, but I've adopted a very nihilistic approach. Well, not nihilistic, but the idea. I think the ideology I've given myself is you're not going to make money from your writing. You're probably not going to get known for your writing. But if you can get like one or two people to enjoy your work, then that's a bonus. And I think with that as well, because of the amount I do write, before I was thinking, okay, I'll structure it so that it's a proper structure,
right?
In terms of releasing the books, it's a proper, this is what publishers would do. Now I'm just like, it's done, it's out there, good luck. And then I don't mean to demean the books with that. It's more
the mindset behind it.
Yeah, it's more kind of like I don't want to sit on my work anymore.
Yeah.
And release it on a set structure, which is, how many? I've got enough. Kirk Sandblaster is a perfect example in that I used to release it March of every year. I've been sitting on 4 or 5 of those books recently, and that means if I followed that, I'd be releasing them. I've got 5 years' time, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to give the work out, let people read it, let people hopefully enjoy it, and go from there. I don't know. I don't know whether it's a good approach. I don't know whether it's a bad approach.
Well, I think if it helps, it is a good one. I mean,
it helps. It helps with the writing. It adds an end game to it. Like at the moment, I've just finished the second Mr. Blank book. I'm finishing a horror comedy thing that's kind of inspired. Do you know about the SCP Foundation?
It's ringing bells, but I'm not putting.
It's kind of it's an online creative writing thing where it's basically a more intelligent creepypasta.
Okay.
Where it's done really scientifically, and like it's all done as like files on various different anomalous materials.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I think the most famous ones are a lizard that is completely indestructible and hates everything. A little girl who, if you spend more than 10 minutes with her, you want to kill her. A llama suit, which makes you think you're Larry the llama, which was brilliantly combined with a delivery service that delivers llamas. It's brilliant.
That's awesome.
It's a fantastic mix of horror and comedy. And I think if you are somebody who writes and you're somebody who enjoys those particular, especially horror, if you really like horror, you need to go onto this website and read some of the stuff on there. There's some that are very, very simple. They're like probably take you less than 2 minutes to read. And there are some that are horrifically detailed. Like there's this brilliant one where it's a staircase.
Okay.
And it never ends. and the people who go into it can hear like a child asking for help coming from below. But the further they go down, the child still seems to be at the same distance, and then they see this face, and that's it. And it's brilliant. It's the quality of writing on there is I mean, we were talking about going down Wikipedia wormholes earlier,
yeah,
and how you can just lose yourself in research. I've been asked many times, oh, you're a writer, so you must read a lot. And I think of that in terms of actual books. And I don't know if we mentioned this last time as well. In terms of actual books, I don't read a horrendous amount, but I'll read when I'm interested in something.
Mm-hmm.
However, with stuff like this, and there is literally hours of content, I read ferociously, like on Wikipedia, like true crime. I love true crime, and the problem is that the more when it comes to true crime, you're looking at stuff like my mum used to get this monthly series where they will send you like a brutal crime of the month, like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and stuff like that. And me and my fiance are equally. I'm really selling myself as sounding really mentally functional here at the moment. Me and my partner love watching true crime documentaries, like disappearances and stuff like that. And I mean, that's one of the worst ones on Wikipedia is list of mysterious disappearances. It's fantastic.
I have to check that out.
I mean, there's a lot of basically, obviously,
horrible things,
101 type stuff.
Yeah,
children that have gone missing and college students, mostly always female, that have gone missing.
Yeah.
But then there's the ones of the guy who was like just in his home one day, got a phone call and said to his wife he'll be back and never returned. And some of them are absolutely fascinating, and it's stuff like that sort of thing interests me. And via stuff like the SCP, the way it's written is very, very well done. I mean, there's obvious horror there, but the way it's done is it draws you in. And I think, getting back to some sort of point here, I did say I tangent before, so here we are.
I encourage it.
I think any piece of written material, especially fiction, that can draw you into that point, again, going back to what we were saying about getting into an emotional state with your writing, if something can do that, you're onto something good here. If it can, like you say with your dystopian novel, you felt, you're saying you felt really, was it drained? And
yeah, afterwards.
Yeah. With some of my horror stuff as well, I've just the mental weight that puts on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good sign, I would say. If you're a writer and even though you know exactly what it is you're doing, where the story's going and blah, 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 if it still has that much of an emotional effect on you, and it's not, when I say it's not a story that means something to you, I don't mean I don't mean basically hack work, but something that's like really, really personal. Like I've written stories on like people with suicidal depression before, which is something personal to me.
Right.
But there's a different feeling with that than between a story where you're touched, basically.
Yeah, no, totally. I see that. Yeah, I see that.
There's inherent there's inherent joy or an inherent sadness or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote one of the Kirk Sandblast. The recent Kirk Sandblast book that I released, Kirk Sandblaster versus Montague Santiago. It's basically the basic plot is Kirk Sandblaster travels back in time a lot, but there's one chapter where there is comedy, but there's this emotional moment. I won't spoil it.
Okay.
It does. When I was writing it, I felt really just emotional, really. Not kind of openly weeping, falling to the floor, crying out to the gods, because that would be madness.
But you were swept up.
I was taken in, and I've had that not just with I don't want to again sound like I'm only talking about my stuff. I've just finished reading a graphic novel called Moon Cop by Tom Gould, who's an English cartoonist for like Guardian and various other. I think he does stuff for New Scientist as well. And it's very simple. It's about a cop on the moon, obviously. But instead of being like this action saga you think when you hear something like that, it's actually quite an excellent look at loneliness.
Interesting.
Because everybody who moved to the moon is now moving back to Earth. But he's got to stay there because it needs a police force. And there's these brilliant... Sorry?
I just said, oh, wow. That sounds...
Yeah. It's really good. I mean, it's very short. It's a graphic novel, but there's these moments where the page is simply just almost like a shot of space. So it's just dark with flecks where the stars are, and it perfectly sums up, I think, the mood that Gould was going for, which is this loneliness, which is this kind of emptiness that surrounds this character. And again, you start to feel something yourself. You're not just reading it and kind of going, oh yeah, he's in space, he's alone, he's Moon Cop. you're there using the images and using I've had it in the written word as well, where there's just nothing. And I think it's one of the things where it reveals how powerful literature still is.
Definitely.
I think I actually think there's an upswing these days. I mean, on a more cynical rant, you could say, "Oh, everybody's a writer these days." But on a more positive rant, you can kind of say, "Well, literature has an upswing now. People are more interested in the written word than ever before. You have communities, you have Facebook groups, you have Twitter." You basically have this massive enclave, as it were, of people who are now appreciating the art of storytelling.
Yes.
Through words.
Well, and I think too, I mean, the world is so loud right now and busy, and we all have these instant gratification smartphones, and I think there's like comfort in the written word that's different. It's like a renewed, at least for me, like when I open up a book, it's just like the world kind of falls away, and that's nice.
It's nice to have that happen. It is something, like I say, I rarely read books. I will only read something if it truly does draw me in, like you say, that suddenly it's just me and this universe that the writer has created. Like when I read High Rise by J.G. Ballard, you get transported there. You're envisioning, like when I read Lovecraft, when I read, I can't even remember the books I've read recently, Jack Sparks by Jason Arnott. When you read these materials, and it isn't just... the world becomes the background rather than the book in front of you is the background, if that makes sense.
Totally. No, I love those moments.
Yeah.
You said Lovecraft. Have you read Monstrous?
No.
Okay. So it's a graphic novel, and it's awesome, and it's got some Lovecraft in it, some Art Deco, gorgeous illustrations, and it's not full on steampunk, but there's elements there that are reminiscent of it.
Okay, who's the author?
Marjorie Liu.
If you send it to me after this, then then I'll look into it. But yeah, no, I mean I'm a huge Lovecraft fan.
Well, the darkness, and this isn't a spoiler, but there's like the darkness inside of people being a struggle is just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous how it comes across. It's like I closed it and I was like, I'm a different person now.
Yeah. It's when stuff like that does affect you in that manner. I have also, sorry, just to quickly, massively go, well, not off topic, but I remember what I've read recently, which I was very impressed with, which was House of Leaves.
Okay, I don't know that.
Mark Z. Danielewski. Anyway, but again, that was very. You get absorbed by it. You get, and you're seeing 3 different point of views, and yeah, the world doesn't exist. The real world around you doesn't exist. You're in the world of the book.
That's awesome,
and it's fantastic. I mean, House of Leaves. Have you?
I'm writing it down right now. I want to read it.
Oh, it's quite something. It's I think to give it a description, it's about a guy who works in a tattoo parlor who, with his fellow drug, drink, sex friend, gets this trunk full of notes by a like cinema scholar about a documentary where this photojournalist's house starts expanding inwardly but doesn't outwardly. So,
oh wow!
He discovers his house. He's with his his girlfriend and their 2 kids. They discover that between their bedroom and the children's bedroom, there's now this 10-foot passageway that wasn't there before.
Interesting.
And they kind of think, okay, and they look outside the house, and there's nothing to suggest that the house has widened by 10 feet. And then this 10-foot passageway becomes 100 feet and gets filled with like atriums and stuff. And you have to read it. It can. I lent it to somebody and they just couldn't get on with it because it's the style it's written in. It's basically, again, it's this tattoo artist who's making notes on this cinema scholar's notes on this documentary.
Oh wow!
And to give you an idea of like what happens is, I think it's chapter 9. Because they start making allusions to, was it Perseus and the Minotaur?
Yep.
Yeah, they make, and the labyrinth, and it's
wow,
utterly genius how this happens. And it was only through reading it, and it was halfway while I was reading it that I went, holy crap, okay. I realised what was happening. In the main text is the cinema scholar's essay, basically, which then has a footnote that goes to the tattoo artist, that then goes to then footnotes to a book editor's, which then footnotes to something which was 10 pages earlier, and carries on in that circle.
Wow!
And you get like I say, the author Mark Z. Danielewski is. We were talking about genius and insanity. This book deals with the idea of insanity, but it's a genius. The way it's put together as well, it makes excellent use of typography, and there's a bit where I think there's a reference to windows, and the footnote's in a window.
That's fantastic.
In the middle of a page. You turn the page and you've got the footnote from before, and it's reverse, because obviously it's the other side of the window.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm getting this.
The footnote is in another window on the other page. You're literally...
It's almost too clever.
To dilute it of its pleasures. You can't get it on Kindle. You can only get it on paperback.
Nice.
It is about £20 over here, so I don't know how much that would work out at US, but if you see it in a bookshop, pick it up.
Okay.
It's well worth the price, and it's a fantastic book.
It sounds fantastic. I'm planning a book hibernation on my 3 weeks off. I'm going to try to just read as much as possible, so I'm going to add that to that list. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I would you talk about coming out changed and taking something, but with that you do come out changed. You do come out, and it's not just. There was a brilliant I think it was with the author himself, where somebody asked, they were reading. Obviously, everybody's gone to it. That it's a kind of a weird. There's almost psychological horror book, And this journalist said to him, like, actually, found it was more of a love story. And he said, you're the only one to have realised that. And you read it, and it is a love story.
Wow.
There is this element of these two people coming close together and just becoming more. And I'd say, find it, read it, love it. It's, if you can get past the intricacies of the footnotes and the layout, and
that sounds like something I'll love. I love that.
Yeah, the tattoo parlor guy who's like, he's kind of the main character, but not really. He does go on tangents about his escapades with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but there's still, if you stick with it, there is still a meaning to it there as well, which comes in the end, and it's definitely in my top 5 books of all time.
Wow. Well, no, I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to let you know what I think. I'm really excited. As for writers, it's very inspiring because it shows you, what can be done, not just with story, but with language and with just crafting a narrative. Yeah. But for readers as well, there's so many layers there. If you take the time to read it, you will be pleased, I think. Awesome. And you have me convinced. Well, speaking of awesome books, Children of Little Thwopping is just awesome.
Thank you.
And seriously, like, what a treat. I love the narrative. So there's so much personality in every sentence. I love it. And as a parent, it's just sometimes, like, there are certain things that you were describing, and it just, parenthood feels like that anyway. So it was just like...
So it's interesting to hear that, because obviously, not being a parent myself, I just kind of went on this basic idea of what being a parent must be like, and obviously going off my own parents. And then obviously adding a absurdist comedic element to it.
I loved it.
See, the interesting thing about Thwopping is I wrote it as a standalone piece about a couple of years ago, I think.
Okay.
Because literally the idea started off as what if everybody in this town suddenly gave birth to babies and they were 15 feet tall with like massive creaky limbs, and they give off inhuman screams and they blast lasers with their eyes. Literally a silly idea like that. And I was like, yeah, let's see what we can do with this. And then it became, obviously, because you can't come up with a story where all the females in a town become pregnant without obviously referring to the Midwich Cuckoos or Village of the Damned, if you're a film fan.
Yeah.
So again, using that, I then thought, well, let's set it in the 1950s. And then became the point where I was like, okay, I want to do this with the humour. I really hope people get the joke and get the personality behind it. Because the humour, there are some jokes which are on some very... wouldn't, in today's politically correct world, wouldn't go down too well, I feel.
Yeah, I can see that, but as far as, of the times that it takes place and the tone, it's perfect. Yes. I mean, it just goes. I mean, it goes. I feel like I would miss it if it wasn't there.
Yeah, then that's what my intention was. It was kind of like, well, I'll throw these jokes in because I think they're funny. They're perfectly indicative of the characters and of the time. But I worry that because there are some you do get, especially in today, where some people do take, as they should, they do take offence at some use of humour. Yeah. There is some things which, is not as acceptable as it was maybe 10, 20 years ago. So you do want to be careful not to alienate people with that sense of humour. I mean, I think there was there was bits in it where I was editing it and I I hate to say that. You hate to say it about your own work, but I was laughing out loud. And a friend of mine...
Speaking of good signs.
That is a good sign, yeah. A friend of mine who's also an author in Mark Allard Will, who works with Canadian graphic novelist Elaine Will. I think I mentioned them last time. She did this award-winning graphic novel on mental health called Look Straight Ahead. But he looked at Thropping for me, and he did a review that I put on the back blurb of the paperback. And he actually pointed out his favourite bit was where the main character, his wife, has gone to stay with the local vicar who is looking after all the women of the town. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of woken up. He's like, well, how hard is it to make breakfast? And then he goes, later, when the fire brigade arrived and I was sitting outside with my cup of lukewarm water, and it's just that cutaway gag where you're like, how hard can making breakfast be? Oh, I've burnt down.
Well,
again, there's a slight inspiration from Simpsons there. You know, there's the whole bit with Homer where he's making breakfast for Marge. He's making the cake and that sets on fire. There's always these little hints towards inspirations of mine. But yeah, I mean, I was quite happy with how it came out. I put it into the BPD universe, as it were. So it's part of that now, and part of the Wilthaven universe, which is what I'm working on at the moment. Nice. But I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it.
Oh, so much. I mean, sentences in, and I was just like, I go back. I said it already, but the whole tone that it was told in was just stellar, and it took the actual subject matter and just like. It all came together. I really, really a fan. And being a parent is terrifying, and children are terrifying. So, there's definitely those moments, especially one of like the memories that stick in my head is coming home from the hospital with my daughter, who's my oldest, for the first time. And I was like, what is this? And what am I supposed to do with it? So, yeah, it's like the laser beams and like the fact that they're, monsters is just like, I love it. I love it.
It's something I think that it's only thinking now, like looking back on it and speaking to somebody else about it. Because this is the problem with my depression. I look on the negative side of my books. And one of the negative sides I do is I go, actually, maybe this is the humour is a bit wrong, and because it's there's jokes about sexism, racism, homophobia, and stuff like that. Whereas what I think the humour actually is, looking at it, is the British stiff upper lip of the 50s to the insanity that is going on.
Well, and that's exactly how I took it.
Yeah, and I think that is what I should be selling on, if I'm honest, because that is the original intent. Like I say, when I drew an inspiration kind of picture to kind of get an idea of what the giant mutant babies look like, and with it, there's a guy kind of standing there with his hand on his chin, just thinking, now what do we do with this? It's just that stiff upper lip, kind of like, I see your baby's blasted the local doctor. I know, you parenting, he's in this difficult age. So it's not the fact that he's just this baby has rendered a person to a visceral pulp. It's the fact of he's misbehaving again. I know. These inhuman stuff. Personally, I blame the toxic waste being dumped in the water. Now, where else am I supposed to put my toxic waste? I can't just put it in the... What, am I going to store it, am I? And then with the whole bit with Randy down the postman.
Oh, I love... It's just, really, Ollie, it's just awesome. It really...
I shouldn't be spoiling it. It's one of my favourite things to have written. It was written at a time when I feel my work was improving. It's a slightly bit of different humour than Kirk Sandblaster.
It is.
Although Kirk Sandblaster is, again, it's something humorous that I've written, and there's stuff in that which I've read back and I've kind of gone, actually, this is pretty good. And I think it comes back, to come back to what we were saying about taking a feeling from writing. I think with a lot of people ask me, what genres do I write in? I kind of just go, everything.
Yeah.
But I think the ones I enjoy the most are horror and comedy, simply because of how extreme the emotions you get from them.
Totally.
And with comedy, I think it puts you in a better place to especially with, again, going back to the idea of being depressive, to write comedy, to write something that is funny, which isn't easy to do. But when if you have a natural wit about you, if you have a natural humour to you, which I don't want to sound like I'm bragging and saying I have, I'm just kind of, it makes it better when you hear people such as yourself, such as the other people who've read Thwopping, to have them turn around and tell you that there are lines, which is, I think for a writer, there's no better feeling.
Totally.
And that's basically what I've decided to do now. It's not about how many books I'll sell, and it's not about how many good reviews I get. It's about that one person turning around and saying, you know what, I wet myself reading this book, or I couldn't sleep with the light. I had to sleep with the lights on because of this book, or I was excited. Whatever. If you've got an emotional reaction out of something, that's fantastic. That makes it worth it.
Well, perspective is such a beast of a thing, because it's so powerful. For just like the state of mind, like, what you decide to like focus on. And I mean, it's easier said than done, but I mean, I've been struggling with this, because it's like, okay, you look around you before you get like totally bent out of shape about how, I think I'm, just wasting my time and this is all crazy. Actually focus on, the fact that this is an awesome thing to do, and it's fun, and life is good.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's like, perspective.
It's very hard. It's very hard to, I think, speak about sometimes. I mean, when I talk about my depression, I find it much easier to write stuff. So I will tweet about it, and I will kind of like let people know about it on social media. To actually talk about it is much difficult, and you, like you say, that perspective, for me, it quickly gets bent out of shape. It is so fast how it goes from everything's all right to actually everything's awful, and you're awful, and this is awful.
Yeah,
and it's about, especially with writing, you get into that vicious cycle of, I want to be writing. I'm not writing. I'm going to write. I'm still not writing. Oh my God, why am I not writing? Oh my God, I'm terrible. And that horrible cycle.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a lot like, I mean, this is, I guess, a weird way to describe this, but like, and I don't even know if this is universal, but with me, but like when I'm down, like for the day, like, or, that's the mood that I'm in, I'm just feeling down. The last thing I want to do is drink tequila. So it's like when you're writing and you're feeling like perspective, it's just, that got away from me a little bit, but it's like when you're already emotional, when you're already, it's, you
want to end, it's almost, you want to get that escape.
Yes.
But you also don't. You want to kind of sit around. You want to just kind of grumble at the world and seek validation, even though you don't want validation. It's a very oxymoronic state of mind.
Yes.
That if you don't get it, you'll never understand it, unfortunately.
Thank you for being able to understand what the garbly-gook that just came out of my mouth. It's like drinking tequila when you're sad.
We all drink tequila when we're sad. It's fantastic. It's probably the best thing to do, especially when you get into that kind of like, I don't give a fuck mode, sadness. What do you want to do? There's a bottle of honey tequila. Get it down. Let's do this. By the way, Cascabel honey tequila is gorgeous. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or had it. But
I've never had honey tequila.
Oh my God, you will never love again. I discovered it in my place of work because our landlord got it, and that was it. I got a bottle. I drank it with my good friend and artist CM Carter, who's done most of my book covers, and that was. You have that friend who you just get drunk with?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even intend. You kind of like, let's meet up for a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of hours later, you're in a bar doing tequila shots and ranting about how the world is horrible. and you're awesome, and let's make a graphic novel about zombies who hug you.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's brilliant. But yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was a tangent.
Well, it's all. I mean, it's good. We have groups of tangents, and it's what we do.
I thought this after our last conversation. I was kind of worried by how, obviously how I came across, but how disjointed potentially our whole conversation was.
No, I mean that's what.
People get this.
People prefer it. It's much, it's a different thing entirely to, be like, going from question to question, having, Yeah.
I think that's what people fear about talking to writers such as ourselves, is that they think what they're going to hear is just a sales pitch.
Yeah.
It's going to be, so, Ollie, tell me about your books. Well, you can buy them all on Amazon. Get them now. Please buy all my books. And that's how I come across on social media sometimes, I will admit. But when you actually talk to somebody about writing, you realise it's not just about, well, this is my story, and this happens. There's a man, and he goes to this place, and there's chipmunks there, and these chipmunks, and you go, yeah, oh, okay, I really want to run away now. Carry on, please. Just kill me, please, as well. So I'm dead and listening to you and being ever so polite. But in actuality, no, this is what talking to a writer is, because we are such creative-minded people. We'll start off by kind of saying, Ollie, tell me about your latest book. Well, it's Kirk Sandblaster, he's time-travelling. And his nemesis is a guy called Montague Santiago, who's kind of based on Doctor Who, because I hate Doctor Who. So I was thinking, how can I write Doctor Who? But really because I hate Doctor Who. But this is the thing, it's then gone from saying, well, my book's inspired by this, but bloody hell do I hate Doctor Who.
No, totally. Rapid fire ideas. They're both a curse and a gift.
Conversation about Doctor Who. Do you like Doctor Who?
I don't.
Good.
I haven't really even given it a true shot.
No, it's horrible.
I watched a few minutes of it, and I'm just like, yeah, there's other things to watch.
It is. I kind of hate fandoms as well, because I'm an old cynical bastard who finds joy in nothing. But the old Hemingway infamous short story that he did as a bet at a bar, which was, he wrote an emotional story in 6 words: for sale, baby shoes never worn. Perfect. Oh,
Perfect. Man, I love Hemingway.
Yeah.
High time to take to the sea.
You put that to TV, it'll probably be like, I have these baby shoes for sale because my baby died. Now I have these shoes. Would you like to buy the shoes? If you buy the shoes, you're taking away. And it's, okay, right, point taken. Please stop now. Oh, God.
Well, Ollie, could you tell everybody where they can find your books and you?
Yes, I am on Facebook, Oli Jacobs Books. That's OLIJACOBS, and you know how to spell books. I don't need to tell you how to spell that. Oli Jacobs Author on Twitter, so at Oli Jacobs Author. You can find my work on Amazon. Just type in my name, so Oli Jacobs, OLIJACOBS. Such works as Kirk Sandblaster, Filmic Cuts. The Children of Little Thwopping. Thwopping is spelled THWOPPING. And yeah, if you like horror, comedy, madness, laughs, tears, bacon, sandwiches, look me up, read me, and then tweet me saying how a horrible, horrible, wonderful person I am.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was
it's a
fun.
pleasure. I really enjoy these chats we have.
Me too. And you have an awesome rest of your birthday.
Thank you very much. We're going to eat smoked meats now, so
that sounds awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Oh, I can't.
Well, enjoy.
Cheers, Jimmy.
Have a good one.
You too.
And that wraps things up for this week. It was a blast. I hope you had a blast listening to it. I enjoyed making this episode and being part of it. And of course, follow me on Twitter at @MeBettingfield. The show at Twitter at Too Many Words Pod. You can read my column on Feminine Collective, and be sure to check out my short story, A Journey to a New Home, which is in Magic Unveiled, a magical realism anthology. And for everything else, including updates and exciting announcements and all of that stuff, and even the stuff in between, you can go to my site at jamiebettingfield.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next week. I have Richard Kadri on the show, so definitely tune in for that. It's another killer episode.